Hello everyone, my name's Lauren and I'm a weaver, and today I'm going to show you how to do weaving. Now, some of you would have been in the classes or workshops we were doing earlier this year before lockdown, and some of you I haven't yet had the pleasure to meet. So those of you who've done it before, perhaps in the class I was helping with, or perhaps even at another point in your life, maybe you already know how to do it. That would be a great refresher for you perhaps, and if you've never done it before and you're like, what's weaving? Well, then I'm going to show you now, and I hope you enjoy it. Today I'm just going to explain the basics of what weaving is and how it works, and next week I'll show you how to have a go at weaving with what you may have around the house or could pick up very cheaply locally. So let's get started. A loom. Okay. Now, a loom is just a wooden frame, and you use it to wrap round these white strings you can see going all the way along. These white strings are called warp threads, and what they do is it's like bones in your body. They give the bones of the body to whatever you're going to weave. Now, a woven structure is like similar, like this is an example of one here. So I took some yarn and I'm creating very loosely a sunset style picture. So you can see, there's some sea-like colours, a bit like hot pinks and oranges and yellows going through it to kind of create that sunset feel. But it's very, it's very abstract. It's not perfect. It's not like a photograph, but you can be as detailed or as random as you like, really, and that's part of the fun. Now, all weaving is you've got thread or yarn coming down, up and down, and you've got thread and yarn going across. So the wooden structure, the loom, is holding in place these bone type yarns called the warps, and then the fun part is putting in the colours, which are called the wefts. And this is how we do it. I'll start here as an example. So all you're doing is going over and under threads. If you imagine a snake going in between trees or something like that, you've got over here, so we've passed over this one, and in the same move we're passing behind the thread next to it, and that's all you're doing, going over and under, all the way across. You can use most materials, yarns, strings, ribbons. If you have old clothes that you don't want and you think they're too old to take to the charity shop, you can cut them up into strips with scissors and weave with that. Some people even weave with soft plants and stuff out of the garden. So a great way to get the right amount of this yarn going through the warp threads is to make little hills. So you just push it up with your fingers, create a little hill shape, and then bop it down. You can use a comb you already have around the house, or you can just use your fingers, just push it down. And you can make them as thick or as thin as you want. So you can use chunky yarn, normal knitting yarn, you can use embroidery thread. It's really whatever you prefer. The general idea is the chunkier the yarn, the chunkier the warp thread, and the thinner the yarn, the thinner the warp thread. And the reason for that is this is fairly chunky. It's lots of thin threads put together, and that can cover the space between these very well. But if it was too thin, it would be like drawing a tiny pencil line between the warps, and it just wouldn't build up and have big holes in it, so it'd look more like crochet than weaving, which I suppose doesn't look bad. The only thing is, when you cut this off at the end, when you're finished, the frame is no longer holding it stretched for you, and then these threads won't be tight anymore, and then they kind of relax, and when they relax, everything can easily unravel. So that's why you need to make sure that the tension here is nice and bouncy to start with, and that you've got a good amount of yarn for the type of warp threads. Now here you can see I've got a mixture of colours, and that's the lovely thing about weaving. You can use whatever colours you want in any combination you want, so you can just experiment and play, and it's not something that you need to worry about too much. With painting, once you've gone like that on the canvas, it can be quite tricky to get rid of the paint, but with weaving, if you don't like it, you just pull it out and you can start again. Someone who showed me how to weave once said sometimes weaving is half about doing the weaving, half about undoing it. But that's the lovely thing about it. It's yarn, it's not messy, easy to have a go. You don't need a lot of things for it, just a pair of scissors, your choice of yarn, wooden frame, and I would suggest a strong yarn for this part called the warp. So if I pull this, it's not going to snap, so that's a good test. If something, when you really pull it like this, doesn't snap, then it should be fine. I recommend cotton, something that's got a twist in it, simply because it's strong, it's not going to come undone, it's not going to be elastic and be bouncing around. You want it to be firm, and when you stretch it over the frame, you don't want it to snap. So that's the main thing to look for. Now with shapes, you can see here that I have got what looks like kind of a series of triangles really. So you've got a kind of big triangle in the middle, one on either side, and this is quite simple. So you're just doing that, weaving this way, then you come back on yourself, weaving the opposite direction, and all you do with the shapes is you just do a row, you go back, but you do one less, another row, go back, do one less, and each time you do, so one there, one back, is a complete set, and each set you go one there, one back, one there, stop, one less, back, and you just get less and less as you go up. They call it stepping because it's like going upstairs, you know, you're gradually dropping one each time, and it helps you get a triangle. It's the same with the square. You would just do the shape you want it, kind of like here, I'm filling in this gap. It's going to become kind of like a semicircle type shape. So as I go in, I'm just going to do, you know, gradually get smaller, and then there'll be a semicircle. And when it comes to colours, another thing you can do is you can blend them. So here there's only 3 colours used, but it looks like a lot more because of the way that they're blended. So a very simple and easy trick is to do what I've done here and combine colours. So in this particular one in my hand, I've got yellow and orange. I've used very thin threads here, but that's absolutely not necessary. That's just because it's what I have in the house. You could do this with any kind of yarn, knitting, acrylic, real wool, whatever you like, and you just blend them together. You can even do things with different textures, so you could get a piece of this, piece of acrylic yarn, some rope, a shoelace, ribbon, anything, and you can combine them together, and it's those combinations which can give lovely colours, lovely textures. In this case I've just got 3 cones, so I've got a yellow cone, I've got this orange cone, and I've got this hot pink cone, and I've done the hot pink here, the orange and yellow here, and the orange and yellow and pink here. So it just shows you can get lots of nice different effects. I'll talk about effects more next week, and I'll just give you a final demonstration of that back and forth. Next week I'll go into more detail and I'll zoom in a bit closer so you can see the threads. Okay, so we're just going over one, under one. So this bit's going over, this bit's coming behind. So you can say front and back or over and under, whatever makes the most sense to you. And you can do one at a time like that, which sometimes if you've got lots of these threads very close together you might need to. But if you've got quite big gappy ones like this, you can just go every other one like that, and then just pass the piece through, and it helps you to do bigger sections. And remember, you just lift it up, create that nice hill shape, give it a bop. And to show you how you would come back, you just turn round, so you've come behind, come round, behind the next one, so you're alternating this way. So it was behind before, so now it's going in front. It was in front before, now you're going behind. So over, under would then be under, over. So whichever direction you start with, you just go the opposite way. And the reason for that is, if you imagine that these warp threads are just like this, and before you've gone over, when you return you've got a bald bit at the back, so you just go behind instead. And from the top, if you were a bird looking down, it'd look like a circle from the top. So you have a semicircle on each side covering the white string, and that's how you know if you've got it going right. And then you just do that, weave through, pull it through. And the reason why we do the little hills rather than just doing that is, you see here, this pulls attention, it can cause gaps, and when this comes off the loom it won't be held tight like this, so it can bunch in. So this just helps you evenly distribute wool so that when it pulls in there's still enough. If you just do straight tight, it starts to bunch in. So got to feed the white threads, and then when you cut it off it will look the same as when it's on the loom, and that's the goal. Plus it's really fun to bop the hills. Anyway, I hope that was useful and made sense. I hope it did. I hope it was interesting. I hope you're still awake. It's very hot and just my voice talking, so I hope it was okay. But I'll come back next week with a bit more detail and a few options to show you. So take care, enjoy the weather, and see you soon.